Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 744B, and today's date is August 18th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Ground Operations Being Planned in Syria, which will redraw the map of the Middle East. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, in regards to GMO, very interesting things are coming out. An organization called Oakland Organization, U.S. Right to Know, requested a Freedom of Information Act, an FOIA, and they requested it to see what is going on with these scientists and GMO research. And their findings included communications of well-known, staunch proponents of GMO crops like Kevin Folta, a professor and chairman of the Horticulture Sciences Department at the University of Gainesville. And he said he was completely independent and he was a researcher and basically saying that, yes, GMO foods are good to go. But he received a $25,000 grant from Monsanto. The documents show that Monsanto paid for Folta's travel to speak to U.S. students, farmers, politicians, and the media. Other industry contacts occasionally sent him suggested responses to common questions about GM organism. Folter is regularly sold to the public as an independent authority on GMOs, which he is not if he is receiving money from that company. Now, we see this happen a lot. These so-called independent researchers are usually receiving funds from the company. Those people who are truly independent, they are shut up. Corporate media doesn't report on them, and they push their people to the front lines. We've seen this time and time again. And we've seen it in many different industries, like the vaccines. Now, listen, if you want to put something into your body, that is your right. But when the government steps in and says, you have no choice, you are violating my rights at this point in time. And everyone goes, well, we want to keep the public safe. Well, if you want to be safe, that's no problem. Get the vaccine. You're now protected. There's no reason to say this person over here needs to get it if you're already protected. But what we're finding out about vaccines, where they say, oh, they do not harm the public whatsoever. Of course, if you go back in time, the FDA allowed their pharmaceuticals and other companies to do their own testing, to come out with their own results. And if they say they're safe, the FDA just agrees to it and says, okay, they're safe. But going forward, we see that many of the things they said were safe weren't really safe because you do not know the long-term effects. But we're seeing the U.S. government has paid out over $3 billion to vaccine-injured families since 1986. Now, if vaccines are so safe, why do they have to pay out money? The Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System lists several negative outcomes of vaccines. Many of these side effects are worse than the diseases these vaccines are for. The Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System reports that the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine is linked to febrile seizures, which are a type of seizure that occurs in infants and young children associated with fever. Worse yet, it also reports that a whole slew of vaccines, including MMR, influenza, hepatitis B, and tetanus, are linked to anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis shock can lead to sudden death. Many of these cases are underreported because it's filed as SID, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. U.S. vaccine court bypasses the true judicial process, protecting vaccine makers while paying off families affected by vaccines. So, if vaccines are truly safe, there would be no reason to have this type of court, and there'd be no reason to have these type of payoffs. And when the government steps in and says, you must do this and put this into your body, you must eat these foods, we're not going to tell you what's in it, we're not going to tell you if they're safe or not, with tests, not with lip service, That's where I draw the line. This is where everyone should draw the line and say, you know something? Until I see proof that these are safe, I will not put them in the body, and you cannot force me. But again, they don't want to show you that. They want to keep everything hidden. And when they start keeping things hidden, this is how you know it's not safe. It's not good for the public. Now, going back many, many reports, I talked about the kill switch, which we saw happen in the Boston bombing. We also saw it happen in San Francisco. The Bay Area Rapid Transit officials in San Francisco actually shut down the cellular networks. And we said eventually what's going to happen is that all cell phones will have this kill switch in them, or they'll have the ability to shut off the network at a moment's notice. And of course, DHS, other agencies are saying, oh, that's absolutely ridiculous. We don't have anything called the kill switch. And on August 11th, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC, filed a petition with the U.S. Supreme Court in their latest effort to force the U.S. government to reveal information about the cell phone shutdown policy, known as the kill switch. Because what they're going to do is, if something occurs and it's a false flag event, and they don't want you reporting on it, they're just going to shut down the phones. They're going to make it so you can't snap pictures, transmit those pictures. They just want everything blocked. That's basically what they want. And they're doing this because back in July 2011, it was revealed that the Bay Area Rapid Transit officials in San Francisco shut down the cellular networks during a protest of a murdered homeless man. Now, EPIC submitted the request to the Department of Homeland Security, and they went through their procedures, and DHS initially claimed that they were unable to locate or identify any responsive records. There's nothing here. However, on November 12th, 2013, a district court ruled that DHS improperly withheld information. What? Specific information regarding something known as Standard Operating Procedure 303 or SOP 303. The DHS appealed this decision and once again allowed to withhold the records. Now EPIC is taking it to the Supreme Court. So basically what's happening here is they're trying to keep these documents out of the public because they're going to reveal that yes, indeed, there is kill switches on the phones, on the cellular networks, and they don't want this out. So basically, they're trying to hide what's really happening because when this system comes down, they will be shutting off phones because the event that's going to occur will be a false flag event, and they don't want this reported as a false flag event, so they have to block certain things. They have to shut down certain things. Actually, during the Boston bombing, they shut down the cellular network. People were still taking pictures, and they didn't realize once the cellular network came back on, people started to transmit these pictures. And this is why the FBI came in and said, listen, we want everyone to give us their pictures so we can take a look at them and find the guilty party. And just on a side note, Zokar, who was convicted, there is a lawyer now that is appealing this because they're looking at the backpacks, and he put a motion in saying, listen, the backpack that was at the scene does not match up with his backpack. So there's reasonable doubt here. But of course, his defense attorney didn't bring this up whatsoever. All you need is a little bit of reasonable doubt. And we know for a fact that this was a complete false flag event that occurred in the Boston area. Now, in Kiev, what we're seeing is that the Kiev forces are continually shelling, bombing the Donetsk area, the Lugansk area. And the OSCE deputy came into this area, and as soon as he arrived in the Donbass region, all of a sudden the shelling stopped. When he left, the shelling continued. So basically, they're hiding what's really going on here. Poroshenko right now is meeting with Juncker to discuss the Minsk deal. Basically, the Minsk deal right now is pretty much done. We all know it. The war has actually started in Ukraine. They're trying to provoke Russia into getting into this war because this is what they really want. And right now, Ukraine is ramping up their conscription, and their target is about 25,000. And they're saying, depending on the situation and how it develops, there could be a 7th, 8th, ninth wave of mobilization. We already have 50% of the people that we need. So during this Minsk agreement, which we discussed many, many times before, the U.S. came in, other nations came in, brought in weapons, lethal weapons, built up the army, trained the army to basically start the war all over again. And the U.S. Department is out there saying that the Donetsk and Lugansk forces are pushing their way into the city of Mariupol, and the Donetsk People's Republic are saying, absolutely not. This is completely false. Show us the proof that we're marching into this area. And of course, the United States has no proof. They're using this as propaganda, saying that they completely violated the Minsk agreement, and the Minsk agreement is null and void at this point in time. And we knew this was coming. Right now in Kiev, they have the propaganda flying wild that Russia has 50,000 troops on the border of Ukraine ready to invade and start the war. Now, of course, as we know, this is not really happening. This is all propaganda to make you think this is happening. Ukraine is returning their heavy armor to the front line. 500 combat vehicles, Grad multiple rocket launcher systems are now near the front lines once again. They're getting ready to go full steam ahead. Paul Craig Roberts is saying the Minsk agreement has completely failed at this point. It's non-existent. The U.S. right now is playing this up, and they are bringing in military assets into Bulgaria. They're bringing in M1A1 Abram tanks, 3 155mm howitzers, and 6 light armored vehicles. 160 Marines are headed to Bulgaria. They are playing this up. They're pushing war. This is what they want because this system is coming down. Now, out in the Middle East, in Syria specifically, Assad's army is now gaining ground in Syria. They've recaptured 4 northwestern villages, and the army is advancing in the area. The Syrian Air Force destroyed the supply routes of the Islamic State, which is really the proxy army for the United States government central bankers, and the proxy army is losing ground, and they do not have their supply routes right now. And this was right on the countryside of Idlib. So what we're seeing right now is that U.S., Turkey, and the coalition forces, they are backed into a corner. Putin is trying to broker peace, trying to come up with some type of peace agreement with the opposition and Assad. The U.S. just wants Assad removed, and they want the country. So right now, Turkey and the United States have jointly decided to move into Syria, daring Russia to respond. The U.S. and Turkey have dropped all references to protecting refugees. State Department spokesman Mark Toner yesterday started laying out the rules for the buffer zone. The U.S. and Turkey have decided they are carving out a buffer zone for Turkey. It is claimed that this zone will be occupied by the Free Syrian Army and can only be used by forces sworn to overthrow the legal government in Damascus. Again, this will be space that is not part of Syria, where the U.S. can bring in ground troops, Turkey can bring in troops, the coalition forces can bring in troops. But there's a problem. There are no troops, Free Syrian Army troops, in the north. They have the Islamic State, but this would be confusing because why would you give the Islamic State the buffer zone? So basically, Turkey is bringing in the Turkmen to go into this area. And right now, we're going to see a buildup of ground troops in this area because we know Israel has been having drills, putting the IDF on high alert in the Golan Heights, saying that the Islamic State is going to attack from this area, and this will be the justification for them to go into Syria. And right now, it's a fact, there is no evidence suggesting that the Islamic State or any other terrorist element in Syria are basically going towards Israel, because the Islamic State is part of Israel, the coalition forces, the United States. This is why we've seen them not attack Israel whatsoever. And their main plan right now is to bring in the troops, and they're going to balkanize Syria and the rest of the Middle Eastern countries. They're going to break them up into different regions. And this is what they're planning on at this time. Now, of course, we have Putin on one side. We have the U.S. government central bankers on the other side. And they are going to push this war, just like they're doing in Ukraine right now. They will be pushing hard in Syria. And they want the ground troops in there. And remember, the authorization for war is pending in Congress. It has no traction right now. And the only way to get traction with that is to have some type of an event which forces the people, forces Congress to say, okay, we better do something because, look, they just told us we were attacked. Because what a false flag event does, it makes people do things they normally wouldn't do, like go to war, like give up their rights. And this is what we are seeing. All governments use it. It's not just the United States. And they know how to use it to make people do things. But we need to come out and say, listen, we know what you're up to, and we are not following along. And as time goes on through this fall, we are definitely going to see something occur. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.